to the winter ITS Friday afternoon seminar series. I'm here to just briefly introduce the person who is going to introduce the speaker. Because I realized that Dr. Yo-Yo Fan, who is a professor in civil engineering, most of you don't know because she's been gone for a long time. So I want to welcome her back. Thank you. Thank you. What she's doing, and she is the instructor of record this quarter. So don't email me.
Thank you so much, Susan. I was away for more than 4 years, taking a position with National Science Foundation. I was directing a program on the civil infrastructure systems at NSF. Which was exciting. Had a lot of a chance to meet with the talented faculty members, researchers, but what I really missed was the interactions with students. So I'm so glad to be back, and over time, there will be opportunities for me to introduce what I do, what I have done, what I'm going to do. And if you have any questions related to decision-making under uncertainty, mainly optimization, stochastic optimization, and data analytics, data-driven approaches, I would be excited to discuss, share my thoughts, and explore possible research opportunities in that space. Okay, now without further ado, we're very excited to have today's seminar speaker. When Professor Wapton mentioned that, oh, we are going to have an opportunity to hear some international perspectives. And I was really happy. So, Carrie, could you introduce?
So today you guys get 4 of us in order to kick off seminar. So,
You should also say something.
yeah, we've got, Dan's here. We could have lots of us talk. I was privileged enough to have Cassiano as my guest this week. Many of the faculty members and some of the students have met with him already. If any of you are very interested in transit and want to get a chance to talk to him even more after seminar, you can join us for Transit Lab. We're keeping him for a little while this afternoon. He is a visiting professor on a fellowship to do this visiting professorship just for a week. We only get him for a short period of time. But he's coming to us from the University of Sao Paulo in Brazil. That is also where he has done his degrees. So that is home sweet home for him. And I'm told is a lovely place. So we're hoping this is a continued relationship because we have lots of visitors who've been coming and they're hoping to be able to host faculty and students and whatnot in Brazil in the near future. So we're hoping to continue this relationship. So maybe you guys will get to see this beautiful place one day as well. He has also served as a visiting PhD student at the University of Leeds. And it doesn't have dates on here, but you've been an assistant professor for 5 years or so?
3 years, yeah,
3 years, 3 years. He's gonna do his own bio. He does work on travel behavior, demand analysis, network modeling, and has produced great work in a number of different journals that many of you may actually come across in your own lit reviews and such. So with no further ado, I want to turn it over to Cassiano. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the kind presentation. It's a pleasure to be here in a full class. I had a very exciting week. Davis is a very nice city, you know, it was a pleasant experience. And the University of ITS and the University of Davis also a very warm and welcome place. And I really like to stay here, you know. So today I'm going to make a presentation about my experiences with attitudes, travel behavior, and the cognitive dissonance, and give you some my view from avenues for future research and applications. Actually, I'm going to present you the results of a research that I did with my PhD student and undergraduate student there in Brazil. Professor Carrie Watkins, she already introduced me, but my background is civil engineering. I did my master in PhD at the University of São Paulo. not in Escola Politécnica, the School of Engineering, but the São Carlos School of Engineering in another campus. And I was a one-year PhD visiting researcher in the ITS at the University of Leeds. And just after I finished my PhD, between 2015 and 2018, I was assistant professor at the Federal University of Santa Catarina. It's, I guess, the fourth or fifth largest university in the country. But there I mostly taught to undergraduate students. And then in 2018, I moved back to my home university, but in the campus of São Paulo at the Escola Politécnica of the University of São Paulo. And there I teach to undergraduate and graduate students in urban transportation planning, urban public transportation, network modeling, travel behavior, and some disciplines on transportation and environment. And I'm here this week for a 10-day visit at the University of California, Davis, under the PRINT program of CAPES. This is one of the largest funding agencies in the country. So they have some grants for us Brazilians going abroad to make some connections, meeting other colleagues. And we also have grants for professors and also students coming to go into Brazil. So if any of you are interested, we can talk later about the possibilities of you visiting the country in the University of São Paulo. You are welcome. Okay? So, this is the agenda of my presentation today. I'm going to give you just a brief introduction on the definitions of attitudes, behavior, and the cognitive dissonance theory. And I'm going to present a framework to the cognitive dissonance structure that my PhD student is working on, and we are proposing in a paper that is under review. And then I'm going to bring you some insights on these definitions in the application to a case study in the city of São Paulo, specifically in public transport system that is used by the students to access the University of São Paulo, the campus. So I'm going to show you how we measured attitude and behavior, how we measured consistency and inconsistency. I'm going to show you what is that about. I'm not sure if all of you are into this field. And then I'm going to show you how we connected these definitions and the measures with the satisfaction with the services and the intention to change the moment, okay? And then I'm going to show you some opportunities that I consider for future research in the field, okay? So I'm going to do the presentation, and after this, we may have some question and answers from the audience, okay? So just going ahead into the definitions of attitudes, travel behavior, and cognitive dissonance. Well, travel behavior is a field that has been explored in the past decades, you can say 50, 40 years ago, until now. And they are mostly about trying to identify the behavior of users, considering the attributes of alternatives, for example, mode choice, route choice modeling, and also the social demographic characteristics of individuals, and many other attributes, for example, land use and everything, okay? So discrete choice modeling, for example, has been extensively used in such a field, specifically the random utility maximization approach, and more recently, let's say, roughly in the last decade, some different approaches, the random regret minimization approach, and not many others. So these approaches, they try to explain how people make their choices or how they behave in different contexts given a choice set, okay? So here's just an illustration of a case for mode choice, but these approaches have been used in many different contexts. More recently, there is some interest in people trying to understand how the attitudes of individuals, they are related to their behavior, right? So we have here a definition of attitude that refers to the degree to which a person evaluate, okay, or appraise a behavior in question, So people make their choices, but there is something before the choice that can be explained in terms of the evaluation, the favorable or unfavorable evaluation of the choice. Okay, and the literature brings some evidence that there is the relation between attitudes, this appraisal or the evaluation given the choice set, and the behavior itself. It means that how people judge the choice set, and how they behave and make their choices. But there is also some evidence on the impacts of the opposite direction. It means that behavior also impacts the attitudes. Okay, so how people make their choices also impact the way they judge the choices and the choice set. Okay, and there are many papers in the literature that brings insights and applications. For example, the travel mode choice cycle that connects travel behavior, attitude, satisfaction, desire, and intention. So there is a very recent literature on this topic in transportation, but our view is that there are many roles for future research and applications and policy implementation. Okay, so the point is, people have judgments about the choice set and their choices. They have a behavior, which means that they make choices, and somehow there might have a conflict between these judgments and the behavior, and this conflict might lead to psychological discomfort. For example, I bring here an illustration of a person that is cycling oriented. It means that the judgments, the appraisal towards cycling are positive. However, the choice of this person are not in line with these attitudes. Okay, so the person, for different reasons, for example, the household structure, might choose to go to work by car because needs to take the children to schools or go to the doctors or anything else. Okay, so the choice of people, their behavior, and the judgment and their desires, they can be conflicting. And this conflict might bring some psychological discomfort, okay? And the relation between these cognitions, these judgments, and the behavior is called, in the literature, consistency, which means that if the person has a judgment about a choice and it's aligned with the behavior, the person can be considered their choices and attitudes, they are consistent, right? On the other hand, if the person make the choices, in this case of this illustration, if the person has a choice which is not aligned to the attitudes, the person has some degree of inconsistency, all right? So, the cognitive dissonance state is defined as this psychological discomfort originated from the inconsistency. Okay, so we have attitudes, behavior. There might have some conflict between these definitions, which can be defined by the consistency, and the cognitive dissonance state is a result of this inconsistency. Okay, and the literature brings some evidence that people look towards eliminating or reducing this psychological discomfort. It means that either they change their behavior or they change their attitudes to reduce or eliminate this psychological discomfort, which means that they want to reduce the inconsistency between attitudes and behavior. All right? So, the cognitive dissonance theory is the flow between the perception of the inconsistency, okay, the psychological discomfort itself, which means that the cognitive dissonance state, and the ways that people try to reduce this discomfort and reestablish the consistency in different ways. What my students and we are working on a paper that is under review. We are proposing a cognitive dissonance framework to connect the attitudes, behavior, consistency and inconsistency, and this cognitive dissonance or consonance state. So in a few words, we have the definitions of attitudes and behavior. So people make their choices and have a judgment towards their decisions. That in a first case might, if they are aligned, might go into the direction of consistency. So somehow we can measure this consistency and check if the person, if the attitudes and behavior, they are in the same direction. Okay. So if we have a consistency case, we have a consonance, a cognitive consonance state. So everything's okay. The person has a positive attitude in relation to the choice, and also the person make the choice concerning this judgment. Okay. However, the comparison between attitudes and behavior might result in some sort of inconsistency. You can see that the letter B there. And this inconsistency can lead to a cognitive dissonance state. So there is some psychological discomfort between the attitude and the choices, okay? Which might lead to this situation of dissonance. That can be solved in two ways. Either to changing the behavior or changing the resistance to change behavior. Somehow people, they decided to choose differently, or reduce the resistance to change attitudes. You know, changing mindset considering their choices. So if the person change behavior or attitudes, they go back to the comparison of attitudes and behavior, which might lead to some sort of consistency, okay, at a certain level. And finally, even if the person is in the cognitive consonance state, something might happen that might go back, the person can go back to the dissonance cycle. For example, if the household structure changes, if a person marries or graduates or have children, the comparison between attitudes and behavior become unbalanced, and they go back to the dissonance cycle. Okay, so it changes over time. This cycle changes over time. In the specific case of this presentation, we are going to focus only in some parts of this diagram. We know that attitudes and behavior have different magnitudes. Somehow we can estimate attitude and behavior to compare them and check if there is some kind of consistency or inconsistency. Okay, but we state that a measure of the degree of this cognitive consistency or inconsistency is expected. So this is the focus of the application that I'm going to show you in the next slides. So there is a problem of measuring attitudes and behavior, comparing these attitudes and behaviors to check the consistency and inconsistency. All right. So this is the problem that we had a case study in Brazil. Okay. That goes to the second part of my presentation. But before showing you the research questions and the goal of the research, I'm just going to give you an overview of the context of this application that we did in Brazil last year. So I don't know if any of you have been to Brazil. It's a very large country. We have 27 states. You have there the state of São Paulo, and that black dot is the metropolitan region of São Paulo. So here we have the state of São Paulo, the metropolitan region of São Paulo in gray, and the city of São Paulo. It's a bit tricky, right? So it's the state, the metropolitan region, and the city of São Paulo. So if you say just São Paulo, you don't know if it's the state or the. So we focused on the city of São Paulo. Here, the city is divided in 5 regions: the north, east, south, and center. And in the western part of the city, we have the campus of the University of São Paulo. It's the main campus of the university. Okay. around 100,000 people pass through it daily. People that go to the campus, either academics, staff, and students, but also people that just cross the campus to their daily activities. It has about 3.7 million square meters. I'm going to show you a picture so you can figure the size of the campus. Okay, so this is the location of our case study. Here we have the campus of São Paulo in the western side of the city. That yellow area there, there are most of the buildings of Escola Politécnica, the School of Engineering. There is one smaller place there where we have the chemical engineering buildings. Okay, and just to give you an overview of the size of the campus, this is the Hyde Park in London inside the campus. Okay, just to give you an idea of its size, and the Central Park here in the United States. So it's a very huge area with many institutes and faculties, right? So many units in the campus, and we need to take people from the city to the campus every day. Okay, and to do that we have different bus lines. All right. Basically, we have three lines that serves the metro station here. The metro station here is called Butantã. It's one of the main lines in the city. It carries about 800,000 people per day. So it's a very big line. And most of the students and staff come from the different regions of the city to the metro station. And they use these three bus lines to connect to the university. So we have line 8012, okay? It's the red one. We call it the counterclockwise line. The second line, 8022, is the clockwise, let's say, clockwise line, okay? Yeah. And we have line, the third line, which is kind of an expressway line, which serves most of the main units of the campus. So if you see here, this street, Avenida Professor Luciano Galberto, is one of the main streets avenues of the campus, which serves the two major units in the campus. The School of Philosophy, which has around 10,000 students, and the School of Engineering to the north with around 5,000 students, okay? So we have also three gates where the people can enter the campus. The main gate here, gate number 1, gate number 2 to the north, and gate number 3 to the west. So just a brief overview of the operation of the system. It's free for students, staff, and academics, like here in Unitrans, but they are not operated by students. Like here, it's amazing what you do here. So if you have this card, this smart card, you just tap and then you enter the bus and then you don't pay the fare. But it can also be used by other people from the city at a cost of around 9 cents dollars. Okay. So the two lines, the 12 and 22, they are almost the same length. Cycle time a bit more than 1 hour. They have a bit more than 100 daily departures. In the peak hours, we have from 9 to 10 departures. So frequency is significant. And they carry from 11 to 12,000 passengers per day. And in the peak hour, around on average 2.5 thousand people. Okay. The fleet of the first line is composed by 7 buses, standard buses, around 85 places. And the second line, it has 4 standard buses and 4 articulated, right? And the third line, it's a smaller one, it's almost the half of the length of the two others. Cycle is 41 minutes, and the frequency is also from 10 minutes, every 10 minutes. And the demand is almost a bit less than half of the two others. And the fleet is half of the other, three standard buses. So this is an overview of the system that serves the campus of São Paulo. And the questions that we have for our research were, how to measure the user's attitudes and behavior, how we can find consistent measures to compare the attitudes and behavior given the definitions that I gave to you before. And check whether the students are consistent. It means that if the behavior and attitudes are aligned or not. And if there's a correlation between consistency, satisfaction, and the intention to change the mode from buses to other modes, okay? So the goal of the research was to define a method to estimate the user's consistency and apply it to the public transport system in USP that I defined it before, to assess its correlation with satisfaction with the service and the intention to change mode, okay? So we try to answer these questions. This is the method that we applied. First, we made a data collection through questionnaires in the bus terminal close to the metro station. Then we defined a method to estimate the magnitude of attitudes and behavior. And then we compared these attitudes and behavior to identify consistency and inconsistency. And then we made some correlation analysis between consistency, satisfaction, and intention to change mode. Okay? So, the data collection, it stopped working. Oh, all right, let's move. So, data collection. I had a group of undergraduate students who did the hard work, let's say that. They prepared a questionnaire and then they applied it in the bus terminal. They printed some labels with a QR code and they distributed in the bus terminal. So people just had to fill the survey online. To the users in the bus terminal at Metro Station Butantã, okay? And we asked social demographic questions about age, gender, and household income. Some questions about travel behavior, more specifically, the number of trips that the students, the users make to the campus per week, and the amount of trips that they did by bus, okay, to compare behavior. And then we had also some attitude-related questions in Likert scale, and we asked about satisfaction and the intention to change mode, to make the correlation that I mentioned before. Okay? So again, I'm going to. So about this data collection, we had 208 valid answers to make the analysis. Most of the users, they are between 19 to 24 years old. So most of them, they are undergrad students. Some of them are graduate students. Male and female are half and half. And we also asked some questions about the average household income. You can see here the minimum salary in Brazil, it's approximately $287. And we can see that almost half of the users, they have more than 4 minimum salary in the household, right? So we used these social demographic characteristics to correlate with the intention to change mode. I'm going to show you later the results. Also, regarding the data collection, we had some attitude-related questions. So we gave a statement saying that use the public transport system by bus to access the campus of USP in São Paulo is cheap, safe against accidents, safe against robbery, easy to use, healthy, not pollutant, fast, reliable, comfortable, and enjoyable. So the person had to choose between 3 alternatives here in the Likert scale basis, between strongly disagree and strongly agree. Okay, so the person had to state if he or she strongly agree or disagree that the service is cheap, safe, and so on. Okay. Just some results about the attitudinal items here. We can see that most of the users, they strongly agree that the service is cheap, which is expected because most of them, they don't pay for the service. It's safe against accidents and robbery, and it's easy to use. And from being health to enjoyable, most of them, they strongly disagree, okay? So somehow they have some experiences that are not so positive in relation to the service itself, okay? And I'm going to show you the data analysis, the models and data analysis that we made here. Well, going on with the method, we have the questions, the answers, the data set, and then we had to measure the attitudes and behavior. The first step in doing this was to identify which of the items in those questions, in the Likert scale questions, they could be used to explain the attitudes. So we applied an exploratory factorial analysis to check if which items could be used to explain the attitudes. And we identified that only being cheap and not pollutant are not significant in explaining attitude, okay? Being cheap is expected, you know, as I said, most of the users, they don't pay for the service, and not pollutant, somehow people don't care about this, you know? So just some statistics here. We defined the factorial load cutoff as 0.42. Eigenvalue was 2.84, and the factorial analysis has 35% of RS explained by just one factor. Just to give you an overview, here are the factorial loads of the items that remained to explain the attitude, all right? So you can see that being fast, comfortable and reliable, they had the highest factorial loads, and the user perception being easy, healthy and enjoyable, easy and enjoyable, they had the highest factorial loads. So it means that we can use these items to somehow explain the attitudes of users, okay? So the point is, how can we define a measure of attitude? So how we can measure the attitudes considering these items resulting from the factorial analysis? For that, we considered a measure of attitude as a latent variable of these items. One can argue that we can convert the Likert scale to real numbers, let's say that. You know? So strongly disagree is -2, and strongly agree is +2, +2, and then we need to measure a latent variable of the attitude, okay? However, we consider that using the classical theory to estimate this latent variable is not convenient. So we don't think that calculating mean, median, and standard deviation is appropriate to define this latent variable, okay? So we considered the item response theory to estimate the latent variable considering the attitudinal items. So it's appropriate for ordinal scale, somehow in the given an unknown interval, which is not the case here, but the property of the item response theory is that we can estimate the probability of the individual choosing one of the categories per item. So the item response theory is used to estimate the probability of the individual choosing one of the categories in the scale. I'm not going too deep in the mathematics, but we defined a model of one parameter per individual. So each individual had one attitudinal latent variable with a Likert scale, polytomals scale, right? So the item response theory, it estimates the probability of the individual choosing the category X for the item J, right? So we have category X related to item J and the discrimination of item J. Here in this case, we didn't consider, sorry, it's the delta, sorry, it's not the alpha, it's the delta, which is the difficulty of the item J. Sorry for the mistake here. So the delta here is the difficulty of the item. In this case, we didn't consider that differences in the difficulties between items. It means that they have the same difficulty. The item response theory is used to estimate the grades of some kind of tests. I don't think that SAT here in the US they use this measure, but in Brazil we have something similar with SAT. And they use the item response theory to estimate the grade of the students based on difficulties of the, I don't know here, but in Brazil I've heard of that, yeah. They consider that one item is much more or less difficult than the other, which is not the case here, right? All the items, they have the same difficulty. So the question is, we estimate the probability of the individual choosing category X related to item J for each individual. And it results in a latent variable theta here. Usually we can use maximum likelihood estimation to estimate the probability of an individual choosing each category. Well, what you need to take from this presentation is that for each individual, we have a latent variable theta given by the probability of the individual choosing one of the categories per item, okay? The result from this, the application of the theory is that for each individual, we have one attitude measure. So this is the distribution of the attitude measures per individual. We can see that most of them, they are kind of neutral in terms of attitudes. Remember that attitude is the judgment, the appraisal of the choice. But some of them, they have very negative attitudes and some of them have positive attitudes. So we have a measure of attitude of individual. What we need now is to measure behavior of people, how people choose, make their choices. We did that dividing the number of weekly trips by bus to access the campus divided by the number of weekly trips to the campus, okay? And here you can see that most of the users, they use bus to go to the campus. So yes, the sample is biased, okay? So, but we consider that the approach is appropriate to identify the attitudinal items, related items, and make some policy as I'm going to show you later. So we have the measure of attitude, we have the measure of behavior, and we need to compare them. We did that in a two-dimensional approach. So in one dimension, we have behavior given by the number of trips by bus divided by the total number of trips. And in the other axis, in the other dimension, we have the attitude measured from the item response theory. Okay, so if a person has some behavior, it means that the person makes a choice, and a positive attitude, we can say that the person is consistent. Attitudes and behaviors are consistent. On the other hand, if the attitude is negative, we can say that the person is inconsistent. The person is inconsistent. The choice is not aligned to the attitude. And we defined this measure of consistency as the distance from the origin to the point given by the behavior and attitude, and the sign of the attitude. Okay? So for each participant of the questionnaire, we have attitude, behavior, and a measure of consistency. Okay? We have this chart here where we divided the users into 4 groups given their consistency and inconsistency. So we have a group here which is highly inconsistent, which means that they use buses a lot, but they have negative attitudes towards the service. Okay, you can see here that behavior is 100% for most of the users because most of them they use the service every day. Okay, the other group with low inconsistency, they have negative attitudes but not so low, and they choose the system. We also have the low consistency, so they have positive attitudes and choose the mode, which is good. And there is another group with not so many users with high consistency. So they have very positive attitudes related to their choices. Okay. So here's some statistics comparing the average consistency per group and the groups that we divided. So you can see that the high consistency and the high inconsistency, they are almost the same values, but with opposite signs, and the same for the low consistency and low inconsistency. So we have a measure of attitude, behavior, and a measure of consistency. Okay? The next step was to compare this measure of consistency with satisfaction and the intention to change mode. Okay? We asked the users about their satisfaction with the service, also in a Likert scale question. We can see here that most of the users, they are very satisfied or satisfied with the service. And some of them, a bit more than 10%, they are neutral. Okay, so they consider the system, they are satisfied with the system. Here we have a chart comparing the consistency with the level of satisfaction. We can see here that is a trend of positive correlation between consistency and satisfaction. So once the consistency increases, the satisfaction with the services, it also increases. Okay, and we made some correlation with between these measures. So these are the average consistencies per group of per category of the Likert scale. We can see here that the average consistency for those that are neutral is almost zero. So they are not inconsistent, nor consistent or inconsistent, sorry. And we just make here a correlation analysis between satisfaction, which is ordinal, and attitudes, which is a continuous variable. We used the polyserial correlation measure. And as I said, we have a positive correlation of 0.593. Okay. We didn't do a model trying to correlate this consistency with the satisfaction. You know, we just applied the correlation. But we have some, we intend to make some more complex model with this. So, finally, here we estimated the correlation between the intention to change mode and the consistency. So we applied a very simple binary logistic regression model, considering the binary variable if the person may, the intention of the person changing or not the mode. You can see that a bit more than a quarter of the users would make change the mode if they could, right? And then we also included the social demographic attributes to correlate, and consistency to correlate with the intention to change mode. And you can see here that in this case, any social demographic characteristics influence the intention to change mode, which is expected because, as I said, the sample is more focused on the students, and their characteristics are very similar. So you can see here that only the consistency is significant in affecting the intention to change mode. And then we estimated a model only with consistency. So we kept the intercept. We tested several models, but we kept the intercept and the measure of consistency. And we found here some negative correlation between the intention to change mode and the consistency. Just to give you an overview of the results, this is the model, the probability, the intention to change mode equals 1 is the logistic model. And you can see here that the lower the consistency or the higher the inconsistency, the higher the probability that the user intends to change mode, okay? And the higher the consistency or the lower the inconsistency, the lower is the probability of a user changing the mode, okay? So the point is, what we do with all these models and the results, our view is that we can have some policy implications from these results. First of all, the social demographic characteristics of individuals, they do not affect the intention to change mode. So the users, they are similar in terms of their characteristics. We found that the items that affect negatively the attitudes are about the service, being comfortable, being fast, or reliable. So some measures that can be implemented to change these attitudes towards the services. Some of them, one of them is implementing bus priority lanes. This is a figure, I don't know if you can see here, but there is a bus lane inside the campus. So the infrastructure in the campus is quite good in terms of cycling and buses. But the problem is the region between the terminal and the access to the campus, So there are no bus lanes, priority lanes. So the travel time, it increases when we have congestion outside the campus. And there are some experiments to charge fee in advance. Because in Brazil, we have the bus and people, they are charged inside the bus. And once we have many students entering the buses, the boarding time is very high. So there is some experiments that they are trying to do in trying to charge the fare before boarding. They are trying this, I guess they implemented this in the end of last year. So they use this only in the peak hours, the morning peak hours and in the evening. So, so changes in the infrastructure and also in the services, in the operation, but also changes in the services itself. So increasing fleet and then frequency, which my view is very difficult because of the high costs of buying buses, okay? Improving the bus quality to make it more comfortable, and better control of timetable. My view is that there are some problems with timetable control. And we also have some evidence of bus bunching. I don't know if you are aware of the concept of bus bunching, but it happens when two buses of the same lines, they get to a bus stop almost at the same time. We have some evidence that it happens in the campus. I have a student who is trying to identify how frequently it happens and the causes of it, right? So some measures to increase the reliability of the service and making it more comfortable and fast. So these are the evidence that we have from from our research. This is just a photo, two photos of my students. This is Lucas, my PhD student, and Veronica, my undergrad student. We presented part of this research in the National Conference for Research and Teaching in Transportation in Brazil. It's the largest conference in Brazil. Usually they happen in very good cities, so you are welcome to join the next year. Next year it's going to be Florianopolis, a very nice city. So we were awarded with one of the best papers in the conference. So we are planning, unfortunately, it's published in Portuguese, but we are planning to submit it to a journal paper in the next following month. So I hope you can read it, the results, okay? So just to finish, our view about the opportunities for future research, considering the framework that I showed you before. Our view is that we can use, develop and adapt psychometric instruments to measure attitudes and consistency. So this is just one approach that can be used to measure attitudes. But our view is that we can use some other tools. I have a colleague who is a psychologist with experience with data science, and we are planning to go deeper into this instrument. Okay. So we plan to apply some different measures to try to measure attitudes and consistency, and also the cognitive consonance and dissonance states, using the classical tests, item response theory, and eventually structural equation modeling and Bayesian inference. So our view is that the challenges, they refer to the measures of the cognitive dissonance and consonance, and also some research on the resistance to change behavior and attitudes, how we can measure this resistance and how we can propose policy making to reduce this resistance. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I want to thank, first of all, the University of California at Davis, Professor Carey. That was a very nice week. I really enjoyed the experience. And I want to thank CNPq, one of the funding agencies that funded my students, Lucas and Veronica, and also CAPS, who funded this visit, the grant for this visit. Okay, thank you very much. I'm available for.
So, I was gonna ask, I think the theory behind this is beautiful, and we talked about that before. But the sample is less than ideal because you had so many transit riders. How do you think that affects the results? And if you had a more ideal sample, if you were redoing the work somewhere else, what would you want it to look like?
I think that the experience with the labels and the QR codes were not so good. You know, I guess we had to go, I don't know if you understood the question, but it's about the sample, right? How to reach different users. I think that if the students had gone to the terminal and asked the questions, it would be more efficient. But the period of time was not the best because it was the election for the presidency in the country. So many users, they thought that the students were going to ask questions about the elections and not about the service. Yeah, that was a bit difficult. And the period of time was not the best to make the survey, you know. But I understand that it's biased. I think that we should have covered different lines because the population is very specific. You know, it's free of charge for students. You know, the characteristics are different. I would like to expand it to the at least not only the public bus system in the city, but with other users. You know, because you know the behavior, it's quite biased on students and using a lot the buses. But I think that I can explore the opinion of users of cars when accessing the campus, you know. So I think it's a bit more difficult, but I think that it would bring more insights on policy making. I don't know, did I answer the question?
That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, well, thank you. That was wonderful and lots of great travel behavior theory. We'll also be paying attention to. And I'm very excited about the possibility of maybe including some of those questions in our campus travel survey. It'd be really fun to explore. But my question is, I think related to Carrie's, which is, yeah, so you had a lot of transit users.
Yeah.
So you're, and then the strategies you propose would be ways to improve the attitudes about transit because, oh, the comfort. Yeah, what you found was just, of course, exactly the same issues here, fast and comfort. And what was the third thing?
Reliable.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. But if you've mostly got people who are already using transit, you know, your concern is the tail, the people who are not happy about transit, would they quit transit? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But do they have a choice? So I guess that was kind of my question is, like, what are the options for the students?
Yeah.
Are they captive to transit? Or could they do something, the ones who are not satisfied, could they do something else?
Yeah, actually, we had a question if the person had alternatives to access the
Okay.
system, the campus or not. But in this case, I checked with my students, in this case, we included all the students, all the users, you know?
Yeah.
Either those who cannot use another,
Yeah.
another alternative, or those who can, you know? But I agree with you that if they can or cannot, you know, probably in that chart that shows that a quarter of the users would change.
Uh-huh.
Probably those are related with those which they have alternatives, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would those, maybe I'm also trying to ask, so what is the transit share for students getting to campus? And then, like, do some have the option to drive?
Yes, some
You
of
see,
them.
you told me that biking is not great.
No.
Yeah,
But they have some opportunities to drive.
yeah, okay.
But I guess the share is very high among the students. It's very high for the transit users. I don't have the number now. Yeah, but
Yeah, very high transit.
yeah. But just, I think it's something that we were discussing this morning, right?
Uh-huh,
So what to do with these? So my view is that most of the users, they are not going to change their
Yes.
behavior. So they will
Yeah.
keep using buses. So
right,
the point is how we can change the system to make the experience better,
right,
you know?
Yeah.
So, because I use the system. Yeah, I use the system, and sometimes it's very uncomfortable, you know. But I guess most of the users, they don't have another option,
yeah,
or they use because it's very cheap, you know.
yeah. So, yeah, we've done some looking with our data at students who are riding bus versus students who are biking. And who's satisfied, I forget how it comes out, but you think like the students who are unhappy riding the bus, why don't they bike? But they don't like biking, so they don't want to do that.
Right.
The least
It's
worst
really-
option.
Yeah. Almost the same, yeah.
Right.
I can, okay. Yeah, my question is related to Susan's. Here in the US, oftentimes when we think about encouraging alternative travel behavior modes, for example, transit use, right? We recognize the limitation of focusing on existing transit users, but we actually try to identify potential users, hope to change their behavior,
Yep.
encourage more ridership. I think what you presented here, at least I see, it's very interesting that it might be able to help us to identify population groups that have positive attitude towards transit, but they're not currently using it. Maybe then that the targeted effort could be more strategically designed
Yeah.
based on your analysis. Is that what you see?
Yeah, maybe focusing on
Is there this inconsistency, like when
Maybe-
it's at?
maybe it's not the best sample,
Uh-huh.
but maybe focusing on these users, right? Because they
that's-
have positive attitude, but they don't use that much.
Right, that's what I was hoping, yeah.
Yeah, and it's connected with the question of caring. So if we apply in a different context, probably we will identify the top left corner there. So
Right,
people,
right.
they have positive attitudes and then they don't use. So identify the reasons why they don't do this and change it.
Right, and then the inconsistency, in terms, also you also have the resistance, in terms of attitude and the resistance in terms of behavior, right? And then that, even there, the targeted effort, whether it's targeting to change their attitude or targeting
Yeah.
to change their, choice set, right?
Yeah.
Would be more strategically designed.
I think I'm kind of maybe beating the same point here, but yeah, it seems like your final recommendations or results would have come up exactly the same if you were just measuring satisfaction.
Yeah.
So if you maybe compare between how the results look just for the satisfaction model versus the inconsistency model, or something like that, comparing the different models to see what this much more evolved
Yeah.
model is doing, will kind of elevate it to see why this is coming up with different results or how it will.
Yeah, this is something that we want to explore with the students,
Yeah.
you know, this connection between satisfaction and I had a very deep discussion with my undergraduate student about the term satisfaction. If people really understand what satisfaction means, you know, we went into the meaning of the word, you know, and maybe it's not the best word, you know, to people answer. Yeah, we had some discussion. And I agree that we need to go deeper in this.
What percentage of students ride the bus at the university? Like, is this representative of the, if you ask the questions in a lecture hall versus at a terminal, do you think you can still get the same?
Yeah,
reports?
I don't have this number in my mind. Do you, Claude? It's high. In the past, it's much low. It was much lower, you know, but it's high. In a class of 40, I would say that, given my experience with my students, know my classes, I would say that a class of 40, more than 30 would be, yeah, three quarter at least, yeah, they use buses, yeah, definitely. Just, you know, the experience, but I should have this number in mind, yeah. Good.
I wonder, so when I look at the map that you were presenting, the 3 bus lines are from the nearest metro station to the campus. So does it imply that a lot of these students are actually traveling very far away and they take the metro first? So where my consideration would be the attitude and behavior data connected, is that only reflective to the bus segment itself, or like in comparison to their entire community?
Yes, in this case, it's specifically on the bus terminal and our service, you know, in the campus, and not the entire trip. But I don't know if it's a good question, if it's biased by the,
Because one would
Whole
affect the
experience.
other one.
yeah, the whole experience. But the experience in the bus terminal, it's very different from the metro line, you know. But yeah, this is a good question, if they answered biased by the whole experience. Because most of these students, they come from very far places, you know, very distant places.
So if they are like satisfied with one part but not the other one, then that's gonna affect their
Yeah.
entire mode choice.
But the difference is so high, you know, between the service, the metro and the bus. In my view, that they can identify the differences, you know, but I don't know if in this questionnaire it was biased. But the question was specifically about our service, you know, it's not, but maybe it's biased. Good question.
I think if you allow me to add something, it's important to highlight that most of our students do not come from other cities. They have lived their lives in São Paulo. São Paulo is a big city, so many of them have made at least 2 transfers into the subway and out of the subway. So they have many of them took one bus to get to the subway, then they would take the subway and they would have to take this bus routes to the campus. Also, they have to be there at 7:30. So do not complain if you have to. Yeah, our students have to be in class at 7:30 a.m. So many of them would leave their homes very early in the morning.
2 hours.
Yes, some of them will be traveling for more than 1 hour.
Yeah.
Okay, and there is another point in which here at UC Davis, you have a huge advantage that Cassiano mentioned. You have students driving the buses. Students drive smoothly. Bus drivers everywhere from London to São Paulo, they tend to drive not that so smoothly. So the ride is not that comfortable, okay, on that point.
Thank you, Ron. Yes.
Yes.
Can you say a little bit about the biking situation?
Oh, yes. I mentioned this morning, before pandemic, there were some experiences with dockless bicycles. Just to give you an overview of São Paulo, very briefly. Here, perfect. So, São Paulo, there are two main rivers here, River Tietê and River Pinheiros. So there is a high hill here, it's Paulista Avenue, one of the main avenues in the city. So in this area, there was a dockless experience with a company before pandemic, but then it was not so good, and the service, it reached the campus. But now there is a station service. Most of the stations, they are in the close to the metro stations, right? And there is a big one in the Butantã station. So many students, many people, they leave their bicycle there and they go to the campus. And we have, I remember that just before the pandemic, they built the stations in the campus. And just after the pandemic, they improved the cycling network in the campus. So the cycling network is very good. We have stations of bike sharing. And there is a bike sharing station close to the metro. But with this questionnaire, we also did a stated preference survey, trying to check if the users would use the bicycle if they were free, like the buses. Because there is a contract between the university and the operator. So the university pays the fares of the buses. So our research tried to identify if the users would change to the bicycle if they were free. But no, they would stay in the buses. I don't know why. So,
I don't know either.
I don't know.
I would say that's not so comfortable. Weather is a major problem because there's a lot. And it's not light rain as we see here in Davis. It's very heavy rain sometimes with thunderstorms, etc. So it's a risk. Students come from far, so sometimes they are not willing to be biking for 15 minutes after they leave the subway.
Yeah.
I think this is a major problem. Some students would not be willing to leave their bikes parked close to the subway station because it's going to be their bikes. The shared bike service has a problem with the repositioning, as every campus. So because every student wants to go to the campus in the morning, and you have to reposition the bikes to the stations. It happens at MIT. If you want to go to MIT in the morning, if you have to leave your bike there, you won't find a space. You have to leave the bike 2 miles away from MIT because they don't have enough docks. So these are some of the issues that we have.
Yeah.
And our buses are overcrowded as well. We are trying to understand how increase capacity. We are switching to larger buses. We are reducing frequency. And oftentimes, again, as Cassiano mentioned, we have a dispatching problem. So they are supposed to be running every 15 minutes or 10 minutes, but they don't do it. So you have one bus that is delayed 5 minutes and the other bus departs immediately after. So you see those buses from the same route traveling together. So a lot of practical issues as well. You are invited to come and be with us and spend some time and maybe help us improve the system. This third line that was proposed, that expressed what that Cassiano mentioned, was devised by our students, undergrad students that were devising some way to improve capacity without increasing the fleet. They did it as an undergrad capstone project. So we are more than willing, if some of you would like to come and spend some month with us, okay? We're more than willing to come. Yes, Cassiano, right?
Of course.
Yes,
Just one
absolutely.
additional comment about the cycling. Why people, my view is that this area here is also not good for cycling. There is a cycle lane here, but I guess people don't feel so safe in terms of traffic and also robbery. There are some intersections that are not so safe. So my view is that this region is one of the main problems, like the buses, yeah, this is a.
Well, why isn't the metro station at the campus? I mean, I was-
Yeah, this line was inaugurated in 2010. If I'm not wrong, the project originally was supposed to be here. This is the dean's office here, this is the clock tower, But there is, so they changed it because, to serve the city.
But I think that this is the
But-
$1 million question.
Yeah,
To understand why we don't have a bus, subway station inside campus.
Yeah.
One of the, there is not really a solid argument. Some people claim that if we had a subway station there, the campus would become a parking lot. So everybody, even nowadays, people come to campus, they have nothing to do with campus. They leave their cars there, they walk up to the station or to the train station across the river. So some people were, kind of afraid that it would become a huge parking lot. So you ask me, why don't we enforce parking? Because it's not popular. It's very difficult to take measures that are not popular. People will be revolted. I always park it here for free now. Why am I being charged to park here? So these are decisions that are politically difficult to be made. You have to be courageous. Like the mayor of Bogota, we implemented Transmilenio against all cars. De La Peña.
yeah, I have heard about a new metro line.
Yes,
Is coming from the western side of the city.
yes.
That will cross the campus and there is a planned station here, but I don't know if it's gonna happen,
Yes, in 10 years maybe.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm true. I'm not joking. In 10
Wow.
years.
Yeah.
We build 5 kilometers of subway per year, no more than that.
Yeah, it's not so.
Because we are not China, regretfully. We should go to China and learn from the Chinese.
If there are no other questions, can I ask unrelated? Some streets are named after professors. Are those very
Yes.
prominent figures?
Yeah, most of them are professors. Here is the square Ramos de Azevedo. Ramos de Azevedo was one of the founders of the Escola Polytechnic, of the School of Engineering. So, yes, they are named after some professors. There is a question in the chat here. I don't know if it's a question or.
You can definitely take a look at it. I think it was kind of answered with
Oh,
all.
no, that was you. Sorry.
Oh, no, yeah, it's right there. How am I learning with less bus riders or that's platform? What would encourage others to ride buses? Not sure. I read it, I was sure.
Yeah, I don't know if it's very difficult, but it's so fine. Now, encourage people how to ride buses. I don't know if it's Linda is listening now, but I don't think it's the case of bringing more people to the system, but understanding how they, I don't know where.
You can talk straight, just talk straight forward.
I think it's understanding how they see the system and how they feel using the system. and not bringing more people to the system. Right? So I don't think it's in the game. So
I have a question for both of you professors. Which street will be named after you?
just after Professor Gold, not
No, I think none of them. We are very unimportant professors.
I'd rather have a bike lane.
Bike lane
It's
after you,
funny
bike lane
because
after you.
until
Yeah.
recently,
Interesting, yeah.
donors were not seen as a good things for university. So we have some students that have become very wealthy and they wanted to donate to the university. And part of the university was this is dirty money because it comes from someone. Only recently that we have evolved to accept donations and name, conference rooms and buildings with the name of our donors. We are trying to evolve.
Yeah, that's so different.
Yes.
Every university
Yeah.
does.
I was gonna say, when any of you become rich, we will gladly take your money.
Right.
And if I say
Put your
something
name
like
in.
that, I would be fired.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And people, we give now names to the roads for professors only when after they pass away. We don't name, so I hope that it takes a long time. No outlet, stretch will be given someone's name.
Well, thank you so much. This is a wonderful learning experience. And then let's thank our speaker one more time.